Good morning, my friends. I did a little video earlier, and of course, the little thing cut off. Got a little message on the side. Said I'm too full. And I was so full that I couldn't even do a photo of some of the pine pollen collecting I've been doing. It's really kind of cool. Now it's gone a little bit, but my hands were covered in yellow pollen. You can still see little bits in between my fingers. Not quite as colorful, I guess. I don't know. But it was kind of cool, kind of fun. I was doing something that I've read about, never knew I'd be doing it myself. I learned a lot from the other day. I was trying to find out, I was sending messages to Robbie Anderman, who has a book out, which I'll do a little episode on, video on later when I find, I'll get his book cover and post it and so on. If I was way more organized, I'd have a link in the YouTube comments and on Facebook, and I really should be on top of that. No excuse, but it will come up soon. But the name is Robbie Anderman, and he has a book out on medicinal and health kind of benefits and use of trees in these areas. And he's not that far from me. He's about an hour from me. And I go out that direction quite often. As far as I know, he spearheaded and has a commune out there, which is pretty cool. As I network, like just the wealth of information you can get from different sort of experts in those fields that you could never be an expert in all yourself. So thank you, Robbie Anderman, for helping me out amazingly. Also, Karen, just down the road, who, when I went over to visit yesterday, can't believe she's almost 80 years old. I thought she was like late 60s, early 70s. But man, what a testament to how someone who lives out here and does all these natural things, what it can do for you. But yeah, she had Robbie's book out when I took Raven over to see her place. She has a stack wall cordwood constructed house, and it's all off grid. And her husband just passed away not too long ago, very tragic. And she's still, I don't think he ever recover in that sense, but she's adapting to this new level of challenge, and also being on her own at that age is pretty amazing. I saw women in Greece like that, in their 90s and still living on their own, fully able-bodied. But anyway, so back to my main topic. Try not to go off on a tangent too much here and lose myself. So I've been doing this pine pollen cone thing, and I've been trying to learn from Robbie and everyone else, differences like pine needle tea or whatever extract, pine pollen cone extract, different forms of extraction as well, tinctures and things. You can do it, from what I'm learning, with alcohol. You can do it with apple cider vinegar. Different processes probably bring out different elements and different qualities and different things. So I now know for sure that I'm not poisoning myself, and it's not a yew tree or something that supposedly looks very similar. I had that kind of weird experience the other day when I made this big cup of the pine needle tea, drank it down, and I was feeling like, whoa, energy from the universe, healing powers. And I mean, you should see the list, if you haven't looked at it, on just what pine needle tea does for you. Anti everything, anti-viral, anti-fungal, it's all around. It works for your blood pressure, I'm going to list all this stuff later on. And then you have the pine pollen cones and pine pollen, and I've been harvesting, like the ones on my tree right here I did the other day. They're holding together, and they're a little hard to pull off the little sprig. And no kind of risk of the pollen going everywhere. It was very easy in that sense. And then I went out to the tree over here. I had to go up a lot higher, and I used the little branch method with a hook on the end. I got to make a better hook. That's from Arthur Haynes' videos that I watched. Thank you, Arthur. Arthur's super knowledgeable in this area as well. He's out in Maine, so not someone I can just drop by and ask questions to. But so anyways, I go to that tree, and those pine pollen cones are, which is a male aspect to the tree, and I don't know if there's a male tree and a female tree, or whether it's just a male dynamic or what, but it does seem like there's certain trees that have one thing coming out of them in that category, and certain trees that have another coming out of them. Keep seeing these little inchworm things hanging from this tree here. As long as they're not landing in my food, that's good. I don't know if I want that flavor, even though I don't know what that flavor is. There's a little spider walking around the edge of my phone here. If it walks over the camera, you'll get to see what a spider looks like crawling over the lens. Anyways, so the pine pollen cones that I've been harvesting at the other tree, which I don't have a video of at the moment, up in the tree, but it was very cool, the pollen all over my hands. They are releasing the pollen now. So I basically would hold up a Ziploc bag, and I'd hold those pine pollen cones into the bag, and then I would just wobble my fingers all around over them, and they'd all fall off along with pollen and stuff. So I was collecting the pollen and the cone, little blobs, beads or whatever, or fruit or whatever they are called, and I was gathering quite a nice batch. And then I came back to this tree with my new cane trick, and I was able to access a lot more branches. So I've got two different levels here. I've got the more ripe or advanced stage of the pine pollen cone, so you can see that bottom layer is what I got from the other tree, and it's full of powder and stuff. It's nice and dense. Then I've got the less ripe ones at the top that I got from my tree there to go with my other batch, and those I will need to remove all these little things from the stalk and get them to that level, and then I can take them all together and either put them in alcohol or put them in apple cider vinegar. See, these ones, if I squish them, juice comes out of them. I don't know if you can see that, but juice comes out of those ones. Whereas the other ones, if I squish, they're drier. And then there's some that seem like they've already released their pollen, and they kind of look darker color, a little more orangey brown compared to, sorry, cutting off my head again, compared to the nice yellowy color of these. So I'll go right back to why I'm so excited about getting this. I find that, what was the term that comes to mind is lean into God. I love the term. Lean into that which I just find it's a good general term, God, capital G, sort of that sum total presence that everything is a part of, sort of the author of the novel, so to speak, in a metaphorical sense. That nature is a part of, that, the universe, infinite, all those terms, great spirit. So I'm leaning into the essence of what we are a part of and that which is us, and we are an extension of, and it on and on and on and on. And I find that when life seems like I'm the most alone, or things are going wrong, I'm looking at things the wrong way, and I'm getting a sort of a more abrasive side to reality. And it's my interpretation and how I'm receiving the messages from God, from the universe, from the infinite, from Source, from Mother Nature, from Gaia. Kind of the way, like if you take a human hair, if you run your fingers along on each side of it, one way it's smooth flowing. If you run it the other way, and it's abrasive and it catches on your finger. So there's just an example. Or a snake with scales, it slides one way and it grips the other way. I think there's an aspect to the energy of our communication with our higher selves, if you want to put it that way as well. with your heart, open heart as an organ of perception, which I use all of this, and I've trained myself for 40 years doing my Soulprints on people, and I feel very fluent with this truth within myself. Now I'm choosing to identify and explore the idea that now I need to apply this experience that I've developed with Soulprints into everyday life. And it's something that I haven't quite done fully. And I do believe this crash landing that we've gone through, landing the plane without all the instruments working, was difficult. There was some trauma involved, but mostly just major challenges. Everything was a learning curve. Every single thing was new, and it has been for the last 5 years. It's tough, easy to go into complain mode, easy to go into that abrasive thing where you feel like, why is this being done to me? Like, did I do something wrong in a past life? That kind of dynamic. Everyone knows that feeling. And what I find is, and I'm choosing to believe and trust, is that is more likely that I'm rubbing the hair of life the wrong way, and I'm interpreting everything as the glass is half empty. We all know that one. And that was a bug on my hat rim. So I'm choosing every time, and this is where gratitude journals come in really handy, I think, is by turning that direction of energy around. Hey, chippers, from being abrasive and like therefore you feel alone, you feel like things are being done to you, woeful me kind of dynamic, and you turn it around, and that's the leaning into God, leaning into Gaia, leaning into Source, leaning into Great Spirit, is Allah, leaning into what is quite often difficult, uncomfortable. We have become so trained to only want comfort, and when something's uncomfortable, we step back really quick. We don't want it. We don't want to move through that. We don't want to face it. That's within ourselves. We run from it. We shadow project. There's all kinds of things that happen in that case. But we've been kind of trained, manicured to want that carrot. It's a lure. And what happens, I believe, is we end up missing the richness that God or Source or nature, our hearts have to offer. Our Soulprint, our truest Soulprint, is being missed. And we end up being on the tit of whatever that monster is that's pretending to be our parent or our mother or our father in this essence. Now, if we're trained to believe we are a limited being, just this flesh and blood thing, and that there is, everything else is poo-poo, and that's a met, and stupid shit, and fuck that stuff, science, someone's definition of science, that is, limited definition of science, is the only way, big pharma, blah, 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 blah. People follow that, and they align with it, and then anyone that says anything like faith, or intuition, or my truth, they get put down and looked down on and belittled. And more than that, this essence is being belittled. Whereas I believe, like the poke, the jab, whatever you want to call it, this experimental gene therapy that is being pushed on everyone out of a place of fear. People feeling that there's no option but taking this route with this very little, hang on. I have that vial here. It is vial. That's a good word too. Of course, different spelling, V-I-L-E. But there it is. Pfizer's little vaccine. Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. I'm just reading label. So there it is. So I didn't want to put it near my water. I feel like the energy of it is not even good for health. So you got that being forced on people with this story, this narrative that this is the only way. It's like cows being corralled into their chamber to be executed for meat. I feel that's my feeling of what we're being corralled into. And then all natural treatments, or more natural treatments, more proven treatments for this. Now the truth is starting to come out, by the way, with Fauci. You wait and see. All the mainstream media stations are downplaying it. Of course they would. But you watch. It's unfolding now as the truth comes out. But anyway, so, for example, Ivor, you know what, ending with Mectin there, has been giving great results. People are finding great results, both as a preventative, prophylactic, using like once a week, or for treatment. I haven't seen someone that proven that they have COVID, they're lying there half dead and whatever, and then this is given to them and they revive. I've heard the stories from doctors, so I'm trusting that. Although I do know that until things happen in front of me, I can't trust 100%. But like the girl at the Shoppers Drug Mart pharmacy in Bancroft that was like shaking violently after her jab, I trust my senses, my eyes. There's no way I imagined that, and there's no way, yeah, I guess there's little coincidences that could happen exactly the same time, which is why what they try to do to downplay it all. Anyways, let's get back on track here. I am here collecting pine pollen from the trees, from these male pine pollen cones, and I'm going to show in another video everything that's reported to be in this, and a tincture seems to be the best formula because it's only available once a year, and that's fine if you want to eat it fresh once a year, but kind of the idea of staggering it out over time for treatments and for like just dealing with radiation poisoning from Fukushima, just dealing with the radiation from your phones, just dealing with the radiation from 5G, just dealing with the radiation from cell phone towers, anything. Pine pollen seems to be a very important thing to have, or extract, and pine needle tea is an important thing to have in your spice rack, let's just say. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm glad I'm not, because that would give me skewed training and belief systems that would blind me to what I'm trying to open up to. One that I would have a lot more respect for in this area for knowledge would be like the maestro in Peru that I did the ayahuasca ceremonies under, or someone like that, like someone who deals with hundreds of thousands of plants in a jungle and knows them all, and their father trained them, or their mother, or whoever, and so on. So I trust and I align more with that. I feel that pursuing that direction is putting me more in touch with nature, more in touch with what I was born with and what I'm meant to activate within myself. And I choose from experience to identify that a lot of this big pharma stuff is, I don't know the best way to put it, a misalignment, whether by choice, whether by accident, a little bit of each, but it's synthetic, still inspired by nature. They wouldn't know any of this shit unless they learned from nature, but they think they can do better. So here you go, all these famous medicines that have gone off in a 10, and some of them are fucking amazing. I'm not knocking everything, but the overall effect that I see is people are becoming dumbed down. They're losing a sense and a belief and a perspective that they are more than what meets the eye. We've been trained to see ourselves, on purpose or by accident, to see ourselves as limited beings in conflict, or needing to try and avoid conflict, rather than infinite beings that are connected in many ways, and wanting to explore that and wanting to go into more depth. Like the amount of exploration and learning that we could be doing at every moment, and I believe what we should be doing. Meanwhile, we're caught up in this big narrative that's being played on us, and we're being trained into letting go of any connection with ourselves. So that's what I'm doing. I am trusting, I am following the communication. I am trying to enhance that language between me and plants, between me and the forest, between me and just my inner self, my intuition, my gut feelings, my heart-based communication within myself. This is what I'm trying to develop within myself, and part of that is to acknowledge that things are not being done to me. I'm not a woeful this and that. I'm not a complainer. I am choosing to be grateful for something that I don't understand yet, if that's the case. Something that feels like it's being done to me. It's like kicking the tire. It doesn't work, in my opinion. So I'm choosing to identify these things and turn them around. And that's the lean into God aspect that I feel is still a very good term to use, phrase. So I'm leaning into God. I'm embracing the discomfort that I'm going through on many levels. And I'll be honest, very uncomfortable at times, but I'm not complaining. I am showing my gratitude, and so therefore I'm leaning into the prickles. Because prickles, just like New Year's Eve, I did the polar plunge, inspired by Wim Hof. I did that when I was 19, in Fort Francis as well. Just for the hell of it. I didn't know what I was doing health-wise, but I knew people in Finland and places, sort of Nordic countries, did it, and it was known that the whole sauna thing of the hot, cold, rolling in the snow, plunging into cold water was very healthy, good for the heart, good for the immune system, but also as a reset. And also I find to communicate to yourself that difficulty, discomfort is not necessarily a bad thing. And then that segues into my whole foundation and reasoning behind the Soulprint tattoo and its healing potential, because once again, you sit in the chair, there's discomfort. Everyone that's had a tattoo knows, even before you get the tattoo, the Soulprint, there's a discomfort. You start to get nervous. You start to get a little bit of fearfulness that you may not have ever felt before. You're an adult now. It reminds me when you were a kid or something. You get scared. That makes people go through all kinds of stuff even before they've got there. And there's good reason for it. You might be going to someone who doesn't do a good job or something, and you got to be careful. But in the case of with me, people will say, well, I totally trust you, but I'm still feeling a little bit nervous and excited at the same time. And I find nervousness and excitement in perfect balance is the perfect portal access dynamic to go into a deeper part of yourself and open up a whole new realm of communication with the universe. And that's what I'm doing here, and that's what my Soulprints are about. And that's all why I'm doing this video series, is to show people that I'm not just making up some new age concept of what healing is or what a Soulprint is in my interpretation. I'm trying to show over time with what I'm doing, how I'm living, and how I'm meeting my challenges and my discomfort, that in a lot of cases things I would rather not be happening, but I'm choosing to embrace them, because what is happening is I'm going into these places. I'm choosing to see these events as an invitation, a communication with the universe, a communication with Source, with Gaia. I'm opening up that communication. I'm leaning into God in that sense. I choose, when I say God, I think of God, goddess, male, masculine, feminine, all energies encompassed within, just for clarity. So these are the portals that I work at opening within myself, for the entire universe, for the entire planet, for individuals in the case of a Soulprint. This is how I knowledgeably, with awareness, and where there isn't awareness, I open to that awareness. This is how I open these portals. In the case of a Soulprint, an individual portal between me and that client in the chair. And this is also why it's up to them what they bring, what you bring to the table, to the chair, to me. It has a direct effect on what your healing is, and why I believe this kind of healing is much more powerful than what Big Pharma has chosen to steal that word to use for themselves. Healing. It's been used for a lot longer. And as most people know, the Big Pharma kind of medicine came from the front lines in war times where people were being legs blown off and stuff, and it was instant emergency procedures. That's where modern medicine has kind of stemmed from, with my understanding, my limited understanding. But what I see as far as really contemporary is that Big Pharma has gotten too big, wants to own everything. It's all connected. Monsanto, Bayer, all of them. They give donations to universities, for example, and then they have their arm twisted behind their back. And I've had this experience direct with professors that I, in my case, taking B workshops, ask certain questions and they say, I can't answer that. Sorry, I'll be in trouble. I'll lose my job. Why? Oh, well, Bayer gives us donations. Wish they didn't. Wish we didn't have to take those donations. But they admit 100%, and I've gone to big conferences and things to talk about these topics, and it's come up again and again. Big Pharma, generalizing, includes Fauci, includes WHO, includes all of them. They're all in part of this hornet's nest. Control everything. And that includes Bill Gates, that includes Fauci, all this bullshit. It's becoming uncovered and does not discredit the good doctor, the good scientist. There's many of them. But I also do believe that there are good nurses, doctors, scientists that are playing along, that don't want to, but are afraid to lose their jobs. And at this point, the challenge is to lean into your discomfort, doctors, nurses, and scientists that know better but are just toeing the line because they don't want to lose their job. It's now time to erase that guilt and stand up and risk your job, because this is our fucking everything is at risk here. So I spoke my mind when I was kind of nervous and going, oh shit, like I'm sure I've lost clients, potential clients, because they don't want to come to me because of a view I have. And this is all why I'm doing this video series, to show people, for those who think they know me, for those who have not on purpose kind of classified me, judged me. Now, isn't that the same when you generalize something and you just put it all into a bundle and say that person is this, or that group is this, or that race is this, or that sexual orientation is this, or that color of skin on those people makes them this. All that generalizing, it's judgment projected onto others, correct? I think that would be kind of how to boil it all down. Discerning and judgment are different. Discernment and judgment, there are differences as you explore these things. I'm not an expert, but I'm just working through this as I speak. We're being, in my opinion, manipulated and corralled through fear. They know we don't want to be nasty people, so they go, okay, we can manipulate them in that way. They don't want to feel like they're killing someone or causing the illness of someone else, so there's a good way we can rope them in and steer them. Long as we have them in fear, we have control over them. Long as we have them believing they are, like, if we can make sure they don't remember who they are inherently, that they are sacred beings in a physical form. You've all heard all this stuff. It's not just bullshit. It is something deep that I'm exploring and many others are exploring, and many are waking up. And this is all why I say, for those who think they know me, because you're only going to know me as you see me unfold, as it happens. you know, not just me telling a story, oh, I'm this or I'm that. You need to see me in the midst of discomfort and how I meet each moment. And like I've said, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to pretend I'm something. I'm not manicuring these videos. And that's also why I'm glad I don't have a lot of talent in this area, because I don't know how to hide things and I don't know how to project into the camera in that way. I'm very good at selling what I believe in. You know, if I'm really enthusiastic about something, I can speak about it. But if I don't, I can't fake it. I just don't have that talent. I'm not a salesman in the truest sense. So I'm exploring all this and I'm revealing it to you guys, not because it's all about me, it's not because of my ego. It's an attempt at taking you on a journey beside me, not telling you to do something or giving you an answer, which is like spoon feeding. You know, I'm trying to, by giving you my experience to ride along beside, you get your own knowledge that applies to you, which doesn't apply to me, but there are parallels. But you also gain a bit of sense of who I am, where I'm coming from, because I am going to, this is how people wake up to anything, is they need to warm themselves by the that which unfolds, that sometimes unfolds as discomfort, and become comfortable with certain kinds of discomfort that are connected to growth. Yes, there is discomfort that comes from trauma, bad imprints, and so on, that's of a negative direction, and it's kind of like condenses you. That trauma causes a lot of damage, and it locks into your being. And our bodies, which are part of our soul, I believe, hold that stuff. And that's where all these physical body kind of oriented therapies come from, because you work on this physicality. It's all connected to all this energy. Even if you don't know what it is, or you don't see it, or you don't yet feel it, let it slowly open up, and you will grow, and you will start to have a resonance that you start to trust. And I'm finding that nature is the best place to be in for following this path. And wouldn't you know it, I got thrown into nature. I did choose to go from Fergus to here in the big house, we call it. But it was too big. It was too much for me, and it robbed me of the time that I needed to sink myself into nature and get that language, that communication happening. So the powers that be threw me into an environment and a situation of challenges that I needed for my unfolding. And I chose, luckily, to lean into those prickles, lean into those thorns. And there's an Advaita saying something along the lines of, you use a thorn to remove a thorn, and then you throw both thorns away. And when I first heard that, I thought about my tattooing and the thorn, like the needle. He used that tattoo needle to remove the thorn, like the lion, you know, with the thorn in its paw, and someone removes it and the lion's their friend. That lion within you, you remove those thorns, that thorn, whatever your wounding is, whatever your traumas are that are hanging on, regardless of all the health things you do, there's some imprint that's just keeping you down, the sandbags. So in the case of a Soulprint tattoo, you use that needle wisely, with heart connection, heart coherence, and that's hence the Soulprint technique. So you use that thorn to remove that thorn in that client with their participation, the only way it works. If someone comes in and doesn't acknowledge anything, less happens. Although you can't prevent things from happening, that's another aspect. And that's where people sometimes will come to me, get a tattoo, they verbally, and I believe on a certain level, they want the healing, they want the shift. But quite often, because we've been taught this, we want the surface healing result, but we don't want to go through the process of the healing, the birth, the crucible, all these stages, the chrysalis. We don't want the discomfort. We want just the end result, coming out as a butterfly. Whoa. And what I'm saying is this is a very real process. It's not a little new agey thing. But because of that, you've got to go through your stuff, and you probably do need some orienteering guidance on at least how to identify how you're being communicated with by your higher self, by your soul, by your through your heart, by God, by the infinite source, great spirit, all and any. This is my truth. This is what's unfolding for me. This is my challenge. These are my thorns. These are my prickles. These are my guiding invitations. These are the breadcrumbs laid down for me that at first seemed like thorns. Now they seem like wonderful openings inviting me forth. That's why I'm doing this right now, is I'm going into the raw, unprocessed experience, and I'm getting a communication. I'm starting to understand the vocabulary, the language of nature, of God. I am doing everything I can to open up that communication for many reasons. One of them, Raven's being diagnosed with cancer. I don't even choose to call it cancer, so I even hesitate from that. It's something that it includes a certain perspective and understanding of the illness, imbalance, dis-ease, which carries with it a whole bunch of judgments and misinterpretations, I believe. So I'm opening myself to whatever it is that has manifest for Raven and her challenges and my challenges for her healing. And I recognize through my own experience with Soulprint work that a healing doesn't always happen in the way you expect it. You can't just, sometimes maybe it'll happen that way, but you can't just have that surface, like, okay, I want to go for this deep healing, and boom, cancer, or that which we call cancer, is gone. You're going to have, yes, a healing, and if you go into it in the right depth, with the right depth, and follow through, things will unfold, and you may quite likely get what you want, the results you want, but you're going to get a lot more with it. Hence, I was talking just earlier about people who can shadow project. If they want their healing, they want a certain tattoo, I guide them into choosing the right symbolism and location for the highest potential for that energy to work through them, to move through them, and to heal them. But then they step back because they're like, oh, I wanted a healing, but I didn't know I was going to get a healing. That kind of thing. It's really, really intense. It's very real. And when someone feels it, quite often, if they're not ready for it, they will misinterpret that as something else. And quite often, the best example or best term is shadow projection, that quite often will happen, where the person could even throw it on you, the practitioner. Many practitioners of all kinds of body therapy work know that experience. It's a kind of a flailing dynamic. It's like a toxic reaction as stuff comes up to the surface. Most people recover really quickly from it, like identify right away, and if not, with the guidance of the practitioner. In my case, Soulprint practitioner